Good afternoon all. I hope you're all well and thank you for joining for this meeting today. And a bigger thank you for your contributions and commitment to measuring for the Welsh Pasture Project this year. I hope you've taken a lot from being part of the group and mixing with different farmers, and as well as the management notes that we've been putting out monthly as part of the project. Today's going to be a pretty informal meeting, so please feel free to ask questions throughout, and I'm hoping to keep it to under an hour, to not keep you on your lunch break for too long. So yeah, another big thank you for measuring, and a special thanks to our experienced farmers, Peter, Jackie, Richard, David and Andrew, for your commitment and contributions through the year, sharing great deal of knowledge through the group, through podcasts and management notes and various things. So yeah, really appreciate you opening your farm up and sharing insight to everyone within the project and wider through Farming Connect. So yeah, the meeting agenda today is we'll look over the results. We'll be sharing these in a PDF copy as well, so we won't spend too much time on these, but we'll look over our average growth rates, look at who our top plonkers are, any trends, and then we'll have a chat to a couple of our experienced farmers about how they've got on this year, and then wrap it up with a quick talk on our 2022 payments and looking forward to 2023. So this graph shows the pasture growth for Wales for 2022. Just ignore the top bit, I forgot to remove pasture growth 2021 versus 2022. But in blue we've got dairy, and in red we've got beef and sheep, and then we've got pasture growth along the left hand side, and across the bottom we've got the months. So we can see that, you know, beef and sheep and dairy followed fairly similar trends. Beef and sheep were generally lower pasture growth throughout the year, which is similar to what we saw last year, down to a range of different factors there, but overall showing similar trends. And you know, we've seen a good spring and a good autumn. We just had a tricky time in between. A lot of farmers have seen very low growth on farm through the summer, through that really dry period, but other farmers in different regions of Wales have seen very good pasture growth. So that's almost kept the average a bit higher than maybe expected, considering the dry weather. So this next graph shows the results for 2021 grazing season versus 2022. So we've got in the bold line the 2022 growth, which we've just seen on the other chart, and in the dashed line that's 2021. So we can see sort of the difference of the performance in the different seasons. So this year we saw a much kinder spring. So I think a pretty drying cold spring in 2021, but this year we saw sort of warmer weather and a bit more moisture. So we saw good growth through April and then into May and June, which allowed for, you know, stocks to get out early, good silage cuts, good quantity and quality of silage there for the first cut. Many saying, you know, record high there, but then obviously we went drier and tracked well below sort of last year's average growth for July and August, which is where we lacked on a bit of production there, but it was made up for with our kind autumn. Had warm soils, but moisture came. Temperatures are relatively high, so this led to good growth through October and into November. You know, we're still averaging mid-20s in November on dairy farms and mid-teens on beef and sheep farms. So this allowed us to build a lot of cover in September, October, and then carry that through into November as well, with the next problem possibly being on dairy farms with too much cover on farm. So a tricky year, but also very sort of variable through the different regions, which we can see here. The map below shows the different regions, and the graph correlates to that. So the graph shows tons of dry matter grown per hectare through the different regions. In blue we've got dairy again, and in red we've got beef and sheep. So we can see a big variance there for the different regions, and especially comparing it to last year, we saw that, you know, region 2 and region 8 were some of the ones sort of worst hit by the dry weather. We saw the biggest drop in production compared to 2021, some sort of dropping 2 or 3 tons of dry matter per hectare. which is huge. You know, if you look at 2 tonnes dry matter per hectare spread across 100 hectare farm, 200 tonnes dry matter is almost 700-800 silage bales on farm, which may have not been produced. So, you know, especially on them farms, we're looking forward to winter. There may be a feed shortage on them farms, not only quantity but also quality. Struggling with second and third cuts of silage there. Other regions we can see did very well, so region 1, region 4. So they may have been fortunate, maybe heavier ground, caught a bit more of the rainfall. They've produced similar to last year, if not more. So yeah, so moving on to our best contributors, so our top plonkers for the year. So yeah, a big thank you to you guys, and a big well done for going out and measuring really regularly over the grazing season, and into the shoulders of the season as well. So well done to Hugh Williams, number 1 for dairy farmers, and James Williams, number 1 for beef and sheep. And then we've got Reece Williams in second for dairy, and Yanto for beef and sheep in second there. So a big well done to everyone on the screen here. The top 2 for dairy and top 2 for beef and sheep. We'll be sending you over a bit of a prize in the post prior to Christmas, hopefully. Yeah, so thank you very much to all of you. Seems like Williams as a surname is a trend for measuring regularly. So brilliant. Next here, we've just got a graph showing the pasture quality trends on farm. So from March through to October. So in green, we've got ME, so pasture quality, protein in red, and dry matter in yellow. So we can see, you know, we've averaged 11.6 for ME, 21.1 for protein, and 20.6 for dry matter. So quality in general on farm has been very good all year round, really. A lot struggled obviously in the dry period with maybe not being enough pasture there to actually take a sample. Obviously very high dry matter content and lower ME, but we found, you know, if there was any regrowth there or some pasture there, still had good quality on farm to still perform. And then looking into autumn again, you know, October up to 11.6 ME again after dropping to 10.3 in September. So quality gooder then again in October, and it would have stayed similar into November, with the sort of limiting factor there being the dry matter fairly low, so having to sort of supplement, which would have helped to extend the grazing season anyway. So yes, so good quality on farms, interesting correlations between sort of higher dry matter and lower protein, lower ME. You know, you can see the clear trend in September, but we can also see that trend a bit in July, where the dry matter's high, protein drops a bit low. But we're probably not concerned with lower protein. We're more concerned when the protein's peaking at sort of 25%, and whether we then need to be adding maybe a bit more fibre or something into the diet, because it's just going to go through our stock at that stage. So keeping it balanced there. So thank you to all of our 16 pasture sampler takers. So it was 1 beef and sheep and 1 dairy farmer from each region in Wales, gone out once a month and collected samples alongside photos, so we could see and correlate the pasture quality samples we got back to what it's actually looking like in the field. So that's been really, really useful. So thank you all. Peter and Jackie are joining us. So they're experienced farmers who've been contributing through the year to the pasture project. So I'm not sure if their camera's working.
No, unfortunately we can't get it going, sorry.
No, that's okay. Can everyone see? Yeah, everyone can see the photos now on the screen. So these are some photos that Jackie and Peter have sent in, apart from the bottom right one, which I think was last year, but I just wanted to get one from summer. The other 3 photos you've just sent in over the last 3 days, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I think we'll start off, we'll just flick onto your AgriNet account and just sort of have a chat about how the year's gone for you on the grading season. I know you were one of the farms that sort of saw and were hit by that dry weather back in August. So I'll just get your AgriNet account up and we can come back and talk about winter after. There we go. Just check we're still logged in. Okay, can everyone see AgriNet account now? Is that up for you, Peter?
Yep, it's here. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we're just going to sort of go through, which many of you can also do after the webinar if you haven't done already, and just have a bit of a review of the year, really. So AgriNet produces some really good graphs and charts for you to reflect on how your farm's performed over the grazing season. So we'll start off, we'll just look at the time graphs. So click onto that and then onto view graphs and let it load. So this gives a good comparison of this year's measurements, which are in dark blue, and the pink measurements, which are from last year for grass growth. And then we work down and we've got also demand, which maybe is not quite as useful, especially when it's fairly consistent through the year, but grass cover as well. And then growth, less demand on the bottom chart, which can look a bit confusing. So we'll probably just focus on the grass growth for now, just as a bit of an aid to help Peter and Jackie sort of talk through their year and how it's been, really. So Peter, Jackie, do you want to just give a bit of an intro to what you've got on the farm stock-wise, sort of where you're based and things, just so everyone's got an idea if not ready?
Yeah, Jackie's not here now, so it's just me.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Fantastic. Yeah, we're running 120 stabilizer suckler cows and their followers. We're a multiplier for the stabilizer cattle company. Yeah, so we've got a small arable enterprise. We're down to about 40-50 acres of winter cereal on average, and we rent out 50 odd acres for potatoes for the last 2 seasons, which we're going to stop from now on. That's basically what we're doing on that side.
So that potatoes, is that then what are you going to do with that ground?
I think we're going to go more extensive because, to be honest, for the last 3 or 4 years we've been on daily moves and fairly tight with our grazing and trying to sort of been averaging around about 2,000 kilos of live weight per hectare. This year, obviously, we're a lot lower. And I've sort of been proud of the fact that we've only usually made about 300 bales of silage, knowing that we've got the arable land to put crops in for the winter, or there's always been plenty of silage out there to buy for suckler cows. But this year we've sort of come unstuck with that. So I think, although the potatoes pay very well, the 50 odd acres doesn't even cover an Arctic load of nitrogen. So I think we're better off just putting that back to grass and not growing not buying the nitrogen.
Yeah.
And just go more extensive, because we are seeing, okay, this is an exceptional season, but we are medium to light loam here, and you can see in some of the troughs from last year on the graph that we tend to have 2 or 3 week periods of the year where we seem to hit a bit of a dry spell and our growth drops right off. So yeah, we've got to alter something. It's a bit of a trend.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hint in 2021, like you were below 18 on growth in a couple of times, sort of late July, early September almost.
Yeah.
Sort of just lucky we got them peaks again in late August.
I think a lot of that is down to having perennial ryegrass lays and being shallow rooting. It isn't helping us. So
yeah, what kind of lays are you heading towards now?
We've probably got 50 odd acres of herbal lays in now. Most of that's gone in this season now, and I think we'll just move more towards that and maybe try. The intention was to try mob grazing a bit this season, but it didn't work because of the lack of growth. So we're always chasing it, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're looking more to trying that and see how we get on daily moves.
Yeah. And even with the dry weather, you did some really good sort of proactive management during the summer. with grazing some cover crops. Do you want to just have a chat about sort of how that came about?
Well, that was more luck than judgment. The intention was to put in a multi-species cover crop, put it in May for grazing through the winter. But when we got to beginning of August, well, beginning of July, we weaned 20 odd cows at 3.5 months to cull. So they went early. So we got rid of those. And then beginning early August, then we went straight onto the cover crop, so early August, we were on full winter ration basically for 3 weeks for everything. So we had 50 cows and in-calf heifers on this a winter crop plus 20 odd calves. So that helped us a little bit. And then the rest were on silage daily with the bale and roller. And yeah, that cover crop worked well, but also, again, more luck than judgment. A lot of the seeds had matured in the head and dropped. So those have reseeded the field again. So we've got a lot of vetch and that type of species coming back.
So you'll get a second graze off that?
We're gonna, yeah, well, we're grazing now, possibly in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll perhaps start it. So that's a bit of a bonus. Whereas I thought we were losing by grazing it in August. It's had a bit of a beneficial effect, I suppose. Again, more luck. And then after the potatoes came off the end of August, we put in 55 acres of West Wales Italian for the winter instead of putting any cereals in, which we started grazing last week, and we've got enough graze in there for all the cows and all the weaned heifers for, I think, close on a month's grazing. So we're out of the woods now. If it stays dry now for the next week or so, we'll have grazed, a good percentage of it, I suppose. And if we can keep it dry for another 3 weeks, we'll be fine. We haven't even started we put in 30 acres of cover crop and interval hybrid rape went in after the winter barley came off, so that's ready to graze as well. So we've got enough now to see us through to the spring, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So even though you sort of, probably a month into your winter rations, you're able to put things in place to, get you through the winter pretty well, really. Yeah,
because we only made 60 bales of silage and what we have 140 ton of arable silage. So that's all we made. All the bales were used in August, so didn't leave us with a lot. And I was lucky enough to be able to buy 100 odd bales off a neighbour of last year's silage. But again, it's haylage. It's fine for the sucklers. So we've got a backup. So yeah, I suppose we did plan really.
Yeah.
We plan ahead and get us through.
Yeah. Brilliant. So these photos here, you took these at the start of the week, was it? So this is the Italian.
Yes. Yeah, that was the start of the week. The Italian West Wales is too long to measure now without actually cutting and weighing. Yeah. So I just
improvised.
Yeah. The heifer, the picture on the top right, that's the weaned heifers, and they've now gone on to the West Wales, but they are eating a surprisingly large amount of straw.
Yeah.
So which is helping them bind up well.
Yeah. And are the cows, have they got no fence collars on?
We got 50 no fence collars, so they're on our in-calf heifers and lighter cows to stay out. They'll be staying out all winter.
Yeah. So how often are you moving them on the collars?
They're on daily moves.
Okay. Are they working well?
Yeah, we had them last winter, and right through the summer on just about the 50. There's a handful. There's about 6 or 7 of them which are escaping daily, and those have had them on all through the summer.
Yeah.
So it's something I've got to investigate a bit further with the company to see. We're actually going to take those 6 or 7 out and swap them with other cows.
Yeah.
Because, we're not really sure if it's faulty collars or whether they're just getting wise to the fact that if they escape for long enough, they will, they can stay out. So
yeah. Oh, brilliant. Has anyone got any questions for Peter at the moment?
I was just wondering, how long do the batteries last on the collars?
From February right through to October, it's not a problem. They'll keep charging themselves. Last winter was a bit of an issue because we were on daily moves, but they were on a forage crop, so they were kept tight to finish every day. But they were putting pressure on the batteries. They say that they've improved them this year through the software for this winter. So last winter, I suppose we had to charge them twice through the winter. I don't know. I don't think it'll be much different this winter, which is a bit of a bind. It's a bit of a tie when you've got to take all the batteries off, and to charge the 50 collars will take 2 to 3 days. So, but having said that, these collars are on land a mile away. It's making our life a lot easier. We wouldn't be out wintering them if we didn't have the collars on that land. So it's with we could definitely justify the costs last winter with them, just on labour saving and housing as well. So.
Yeah.
Peter, if you're intending on finishing your arable, what about your supply of barley for fattening the bulls?
Yeah, good question. Last winter, the first winter, we sold store bulls. So we got that as an option. We haven't done it this winter because we had mostly heifers born. So we've only got 36 bulls in the shed. We might go to I might go to castrating the bulls and back to a more extensive, and then we'll just keep the breeding bulls in the shed. So there wouldn't be that many of those. There'll be 15 or so possibly. And I think I'd possibly just buy in for that, for those. It's all a bit up in the air at the moment. We might put 40 acres of spring barley in. We'll just see how the spring goes, but with the costs involved, it's quite hard to justify finishing bulls inside now. So yeah, it's a little bit up in the air, to be honest, and we'll just see how the spring goes and take it from there.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions at the moment for Peter? If you think of any of it, we can put it in the chat and come back to them after. So yeah, thank you very much, Peter. I'll move on now to David, who again will do a similar overview for the year as well. So yeah, David, dairy farmer in Denbigh, but also experienced sort of the similar challenges with the dry weather over the summer as well. So yeah, welcome, David. Do you want to just give us a bit of an intro to your farm?
Yeah, sure. Hi, we're farming just outside Denbigh in North Wales. It's autumn calving, so middle of September we start calving, and it was a 12-week block this time, so it's the shortest we've had. We calve and then the cows stay in, so it's a sort of an American system in the winter, and then try and turn out end of February. Cows were out 26th of February this year in the daytime, sort of half the cows the in-calf ones, and then we slowly add more to them, and then we can graze all summer then with as the milk reduces. About 440 cows. Half the farm's quite a good infrastructure for grazing, and then the other half is more temporary. Challenges this year. We had the droughts, like everyone else, sort of was made worse by the fact we had the the year-based ERVOD in May. So that sort of started us off with low production or low availability of grass. But then, we started feeding grass, silage, end of May, and carried on really to all the way to nearly when we dried off in July. So usually we wouldn't have to feed silage, but we can walk the cows quite far to silage ground, so we prefer to do that than open the pits, but we had to feed silage as well this time. I haven't measured since end of August because we've been busy calving, but growth is down, like you were saying, sort of 2 tons. There's probably, we've had another round since then, or a round and a half maybe, so there's another 10.5 maybe. We stopped grazing. There was 15 once a day cows still grazing up until yesterday. So they were empty, they've gone now. But I really need to measure to know where we're at. But it was a really good spring. We had high covers turning out, 2,600 covers. And we got through all of that because it was pretty dry spring. So they hardly made a mess. And then we coped quite well with when the Eisteddfod was here with sort of losing sort of a quarter of the grazing platform. So it just shows us we could probably take more out in the spring to reseed and stuff in the future. It's shown us that really.
And you can see here this graph just shows the grass cover. So in dark blue again we've got 2022 versus 2021 in pink. So you're tracking sort of from start of June, you're pretty well below where you were in 2021, where you sort of hitting almost 2.6 again in June, and then sort of going down to 1740. So what were your sort of management tools during this period when you were dropping pretty low average farm cover and carrying that amount of calves?
So we were eating into silage ground wherever we could. So second cut was much smaller acreage, and then third cut was even smaller. Feeding silage as well, 10 kilos a head, fresh weight. Feeding that out in the field with a Keenan. And that worked really well. So I think next year, if there's any slight hint of a drought, we'll start feeding earlier, just to maintain those covers really. You can always stop feeding. It was so easy to do, I don't like feeding in the summer because the sheds are all slippy concrete and stuff, but it worked well in the field. So we'll definitely do that earlier. And then, we just kept walking them further. They were walking sort of just over 2 miles twice, every milking. And grazing sort of far away meadows, putting pipes for water to fields we haven't grazed before. I mean, the average farm cover was really low, but the acreage was quite high, so the grass per cow was still. We didn't need to feed more than sort of 3 kilos dry matter of silage, And you're drying off end of July, so we didn't panic too much.
Yeah. Lucky side of being autumn calving.
Yeah, but usually with the droughts doesn't start end of May.
Yeah.
And then the silage clamps are quite a lot more empty than normal, so have to change a few things. Usually we keep barren cows and fatten them over the winter, but price of wheat now and the lack of grass, we just sold them straight from milking really.
Have you got enough forage for milking cows over winter?
Yeah, just about. We keep having a measure up, and we're just about there. We do get winter sheep over winter, and we're going to sort of improve the fences so they can't roam as wildly on the silage ground. So we'll have quite a lot of sort of deferred grazing for heifers in spring and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Usually we've got stubble turnips with bales, but there's no bales this year for them. So we'll use the stubble turnips and sort of deferred grazing as a bit of a forage.
Have you got sort of an estimate what cover you'd have on farm at the moment? Do you see pretty good growth October, November? Or?
Yeah, there's been really good growth. I think it looks like there's a lot of grass.
Yeah.
They were grazing sort of 3/8, probably 3/7, the cows that were just grazing last week.
Right, yeah.
Just we struggle to, it does grow quite a lot. We haven't got the stock to graze it in the autumn, so we do struggle to get through it. I've tried to sort of graze the wetter fields so that in the spring we haven't got huge covers on the wetter fields. It's dry now, isn't it?
Yeah, no, brilliant. We'll just have a quick look at your best paddock report. So just, for anyone who hasn't done it before, if you go into your AgriNet and go into farm reports and then onto best paddocks here. So this shows the year, this year for David. What I'd normally do is exclude measurements if they're, say, measured less than 10 times or something, just to give a bit of a better average when you're looking at sort of at the end of the year.
So they're just fields we sort of add in silage fields as we go if we need it. So that's why they haven't been measured very often. Those big fields. Yeah.
So looking at sort of averaging 5.9 this year, but obviously you haven't measured since August, so it's probably a bit below obviously what it is actually. What might be best if we look at May to August period of this year, it shows that you grew 3.9 tons of dry matter, but I was just looking before, and when we go back to 2021, there you grow 6.6. So it's quite a big difference of over 2.5 tons of dry matter in that period that you've sort of lost out on pasture growth. So that's probably, just shows the effect that it's had on farming.
Huge, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've obviously, felt that this year. Do you use this screen to target sort of reseeding paddocks, or?
Yeah. So we've gone around most of the fields, but there's a couple that we're trying to get permission off the landowner to reseed them because they're right in front of his house. But,
what do you tend to reseed with?
So we just get advice of the agronomist really. It's high sugar aber grasses usually. We tend to plough and do everything like that, but I'm keen to try spraying and direct drilling. We usually reseed in the autumn because the demand is less. But I don't know if spraying works then. But after this spring, I think we should try more in the spring because we can cope with a higher demand in the spring than we thought we could. And then you probably get better growth in the summer then from those reseeds, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and then you've got some red clover for silage, is it?
There's clover in the silage fields, yeah. Some taken over quite a lot. That grew well.
Yeah.
There's some chicory in a couple of fields that grew really well. That was the only green thing here for a lot of the summer. Probably should put more of that in the drier fields.
Brilliant. I'll just get the other presentation. Have we got any questions for David? No. Well, thank you very much, David, for that overview. You can see so these 3 photos, the 2 on the left and the top right, they were all taken in August, 10th of August on your farm. I think that's when we came with the discussion group. So you can just see there you grazing silage fields, wasn't it? I think, if that's come up.
Oh yeah. And then the docks grew well in the summer, didn't they?
Yeah. Deep rooting.
Yeah, the other thing that worked well was standing hay, so that really helped us out. You know, it grew in the spring and it was there all through the dry period, so that got us out of the big hole, really.
Yeah. How was the quality of that? Because obviously there's quite a few beef and sheep farmers in the group now. So do you think that would be sort of a suitable thing as well for them? Did you just do it with dry cows or?
Yeah, it'd be amazing for sort of dry beef cows before they calve, I'd imagine.
Mhm.
Usually we'd sort of cut it in stages, so you get the regrowth back in stages, so it doesn't get too old and dies too much. The quality isn't there. But this year it didn't grow, so we just it all got cut on one day, and then it all grew back slowly. And then we grazed it, got through it all really, because it didn't really. The quality was good. It never went too far. If it's a good summer, it'll go too far and it'll die off, and that's when you need to sort of bale it and let it grow back. But, it's a great feed. It's so clean and just keeps them happy and full.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah,
And it's sort of storing silage from when it's growing to when you haven't got grass, isn't it? It's a good bank of grass.
Yeah, and cheap
Yeah.
feed as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Are you making any sort of changes next year to help the resilience in the system going forward?
I think we probably should have better infrastructure to graze further, sort of easier, without putting temporary stuff up. And feed quicker when it's slightly dry, not just hope for rain that never comes.
Mhm.
It'd be better just feed for a week and then reassess, probably.
Yeah.
Because once you've grazed it doesn't grow back, does it?
Yeah.
If we maintain those slight bit of covers early, the grass would be a lot healthier, I think.
Yeah.
Probably a bit more reseeding. We had good quality. Cows milked well. That's about it.
Not enough of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, David. That's great. So I just thought I'd put these photos up. Who sent these? So I think John Thomas sent the middle photo in. Arthur and Williams was the left, and then Dan Pritchard, the one on the right. So just a reminder of just how dry we did get in August. It kind of gets to this time of year, and it gets green again, and you kind of forget, just how barren it almost got. And if you showed someone a photo of the middle, they might not believe that it could be Wales, really. So it's just having a focus on trying to build resilience into the system. I know it's difficult, and you don't know when the rainfall is coming, but having a few tactics like Peter had, that sort of cover crop to keep stock fed, and just trying to keep a focus on having a bit of diversity in these deeper rooting plants. A lot of farmers found that the chicory, which is deep rooting, plantain, they seem to get through the drought better than ryegrass anyway. Ryegrass is pretty stress prone. I think we found even if we did have a bit of growth, it would get to sort of the first or second leaf stage and it would get a bit dry, and the ryegrasses would just stress. So it makes it really hard to manage them systems, really. So trying to get a bit more resilience and diversity into the system to try and help avoid getting into that situation again. Does anyone else have any things they're sort of changing for next year that they'd like to mention that might be useful for other farmers to think about as well? Or any things they've found sort of challenging over 2022?
We're hoping to set up more of a better infrastructure for calves to graze, really.
Yeah.
So we feed quite a bit of cake through the winter to through the summer to make up for poor grass quality, but manage them with electric fences and stuff. That's hopefully we save some cake then.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. So we've covered over sort of, yeah, looking at your best paddocks and reviewing them and seeing, you know, if you are reseeding, making sure you're putting, you know, the data behind it. And then also looking at, you know, your own grass growth figures on AgriNet. So if you want any help finding that, again, just let me know, but I'm sure all of you are probably, yeah, quite aware of where they are by now. So yeah, just a bit of a reminder really going forward now. You know, some maybe not beef and sheep farms as much, but dairy farms will be sort of seeing a lot higher covers on farms now to be carrying over winter. We don't really want to be carrying over 3,000 kilograms dry matter, especially if we're not going to be sort of out grazing it until March really. So it's just looking at options to sort of graze them higher covers off as long as our average farm cover allows really. So yeah, dairy heifers or beef stock, or like, yeah, controlled tax sheep, but then just keeping a monitor on average farm cover. So obviously we don't want to eat into all of that. And then, yeah, winter feed budget, which a lot of you would have already done. But if anyone sort of wants, yeah, any help with that, or we've got a template we can share for you to complete that. And then, yeah, getting a closing average farm cover and looking ahead, then it will be onto spring grazing plans, which will, yeah, come around quicker than we think. So yeah, thank you all again for joining the webinar and measuring this year. We'll get your payments over to you hopefully next week, aiming to get them paid into your bank. If you've changed your bank details in the last 12 months, if you could let us know, please, so we don't want it going to the wrong account on that. So yeah, thank you all very much, and we'll send the prizes over to the highest measures as well. So yeah, has anyone got any questions or anything at this point? If not, we'll wrap up there.
Sarah, could I just add my thanks from Farming Connect towards all the farmers that have been involved in this project over the last 12 months and previously. Obviously, without your commitment to this project, it wouldn't exist. The measurements are integral for our data, and I'm glad to see now we got 2 years worth of data. And as you all are aware, no 2 seasons are the same. But the more we come across the extreme patterns, these extreme weather patterns, I hope that our knowledge and experience puts us in a better situation really for next year. So Farming Connect we've been fortunate as a company, Mentor Business in Aberystwyth, to win the tender. So we're working on that over the next few months, and hopefully we'll have continuation for this project next year, and we very much hope that you'll be involved. So Sarah, we'll keep them informed of that, and can I thank you as well for your commitment over the year. You've obviously been facilitating this program and issuing the management notes every month, and that's been hopefully of use to everyone involved here and for farmers outside the project.
Yeah. Thank you, Rodri, and thank you all again. Yeah, and we'll catch up with you next year. Any problems with payments or anything, please let me know. So yeah, brilliant. Hope you all have a good Christmas. See you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.